So I had to pull over because I'm pissed. Um, I'm not pissed at our followers, so to speak, but I'm pissed at the general public for passing judgments on everything that went down during the hurricane. Um, the stuff, I didn't really realize all the news stuff that was going on and to the extent it was going on, but I was driving and just kind of looking, which I know isn't safe, at some of the social media stuff, and people are just hammering and slamming people in North Carolina that left their pets behind, and it's just wrong. I mean, it is so wrong. Just to make an assumption that because a pet was left behind that the person is a horrible person and not a good pet owner, unless you were there, you don't get it. And in a lot of cases, yeah, the people that were down there that left their pets behind, they were dirtbags. But in so many other cases, everybody did what they could. I mean, we had one of the videos, it was the brown dog that was on the porch, and I saw on one of the news things, and it was just like dozens and dozens and dozens of people that were saying how horrible, how could you dare leave your pet behind, you shouldn't have a pet, you're a scumbag, you're this, you're that. That was an 89-year-old woman, okay? It was an 89-year-old woman that her husband had just died, and she couldn't take the dog. She had no place to take the dog. They wouldn't let her take the dog with her. So she left the dog food, she left the dog water, she left the dog the ability to go to high ground, and it had never flooded like that there. I mean, I talked to one guy that he'd said in 30 years it had never flooded. A lot of people didn't know it was going to get to the extent that it was. I mean, and then I read comments about, oh, get them to higher ground. They should have moved and they should have done this. Well, if you have a whole bunch of animals in a certain amount of space, and everybody's trying to move their animals out, everybody's trying to get things to higher ground, there's only so much higher ground that is necessarily safe. One of the places where the horses and alpacas were, they were moved to higher ground, and then the water came and swallowed up the higher ground. So they had no place to go. They had no place else to move them. They left grain, they did everything they could, and there were so many people that did everything they could. And for everybody else that's across the country that is saying, I'd never leave, I'd never do this. You know what? It was a disaster, and it was a disaster to where, yeah, people knew it was coming, but they didn't know the extent it was coming. And the other thing too is I know a lot of people that are poor, that are great pet owners, that they make sure that those animals have food, have water, they scrape and save. I had a kid that, he worked and earned money to be able to get gas money to get his dog in to get shots. That kid busted his ass to make that happen. And people out there, if you don't have a lot of money, you can still be a good pet owner, but how do you move 14, 15 animals? The other one with the goats on the porch and the chicken, that was another disabled elderly couple that they were, trying to keep the animals up. They'd never flooded that bad. And they stayed with those animals. They stayed with them, and then they had to get airlifted out. And you can't, I mean, a lot of the places when people are evacuated, they won't let you take pets. I mean, there was a lady that was pulling 2 dogs in an inflatable boat to try and get them out, and then she got them to the extraction point, and they said, you can't take your pets. And I mean, it's not everybody. It's not everybody that there were people that should have taken them, that should have moved them, that should have left and should have given them more of a chance. But there were people that they did what they could, and it doesn't make them bad people. It doesn't mean that they should be crucified by people on the internet that were never in that water. I mean, that water was a monster, and that's the way I described it, because it just swallowed up everything. You didn't want to touch it, you didn't want to get in it, which, yeah. And it destroyed everything. I mean, houses that had never taken water, there was water up to the gutters. So I mean, I'm sorry to yell at people, but the only thing I'm saying is, unless you were there, unless you were in it, unless you know the person's circumstances, don't judge. Just don't judge. I mean, it's so easy for us to do that. It's so easy for us to say, that's wrong, this is wrong. But you don't know the backstory behind it. I mean, the guy with the pit bulls, you're an asshole. because those dogs were in bad shape, those dogs were tore up, everything else, and I really don't care if you hear it. I can come down there and we can have a discussion if you want. But for so many others, you know, they tried and they did what they could. But if you don't have the transportation, if you don't have the financial means, if you don't have the time, I mean, there were areas that weren't supposed to be bad, and then all of a sudden water's rising and they're telling you to get out, and you know, they did everything they could. So just please, please, please stop with the blanket judgment. Stop accusing people, stop judging people. You know, I mean, unless you've been through a hurricane, and if you've been through a hurricane that had flooding like that, that just literally parked over the state, and just downpours and just waves and waves and waves of water coming down, you know, just think, man. You know what I mean? Just think. I mean, look at situations in your own life that, you know, where things happen, and then people not knowing the circumstances behind it, people not knowing what was going on, judged you for something, you know. So I mean, just stop the hate. I guess that's all I'm asking, is just stop the hate, unless you know the story behind it. Yeah. So like I say, I'm not trying to yell at everybody. It's just, you know, it was bugging me, you know, it was bugging the guys. You know, just stop, be a good human and love each other. That's it. Thanks.